I gotta wait because it gets all muffled out. I don't know what it is. Welcome everyone to another episode of Wednesday Night Live. And before we get into this, this is for Luke. Big shout out to all the snowplow truck drivers out there. Thank you for making the road safe for our families. There you go, Luke. I gave you your snowplow shout out, even though I live in a state where, or a city or county where there's no snow. I have nothing to worry about. Amanda, snow?
Oh yes, we've been having a lot of snow here, and I've been very happy about how timely the snow plows have been coming around. So they're doing a fantastic job.
I know Paul doesn't have any snow in Australia over there. Tim, snow?
Not right now. No, this is Georgia, dude. I don't even own a snow shovel.
There you go.
The last time I had to get snow out of my driveway, I used a cookie sheet. Thank you very much.
Oh, what?
I saw the other day a video of a guy using his leaf blower to blow the snow off his car, dude.
That's actually, you know what? That when I saw somebody do that, I'm like, that's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? Like you're over here with like a broom, like like trying to shove it off, and then somebody comes out with a leaf blower, and they're like, done.
Done. Yeah.
Gotta work smarter, not harder, right?
Exactly.
That's right. That's right. So everybody out there, make sure you leave your snowplow driver a 6-pack. That's all they're asking for is a 6-pack. On tonight's show, we're going to take a look into what may be possible in 2022 for the vaping industry and the community. And joining us to break down some of the predictions made in the article from the Ashtray blog, love the name of that, tonight is Amanda Wheeler from AVM, American Vapor Manufacturer. Also, I will be posting a link to the article in the chat for our viewers to read. Well, look, see, my next thing is for Tom. It's let's say hello to my goofball teams. So I'm going to start out with my favorite with Tom. His favorite pastime is eating blocks of cheese and drinking milk from a bag. And Tom's not here. Tom's not here. So
not here to defend himself at all. So let's continue to talk about him. Let's go.
No. He's probably busy in line getting a bag of cheese and a block and a
bag of cheese and a block of milk.
A block of cheese and a bag of milk.
That's why it's taking him so long. He can't find either.
He can't find either one of those damn things. Even in Wisconsin.
Oh, bag of milk. Bag of milk. Not block of milk.
Let's say hello to the guy where it's 157 degrees right now, Paul. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Well, we're in summer, finally. We've got...
Is it official?
Well, I hope so.
You know it's official because he's got a fan on, you see? Look, he's got
He's got the wind in his hair.
Yeah, he's got the Steel Panther vibe going on right now.
Yeah. He doesn't have the sunglass raccoon suntan yet, so I wasn't sure yet, because there's an official day. We talked about this before and you guys laughed at me, but there is an official day of summer, spring, winter, and fall. And you laughed at me that doesn't happen in Australia.
No, not really, because so far this year, normally by this stage or between Christmas and New Year, normally we've got bushfires happening. This year we've had rain.
Yeah.
One day, well, Christmas Day was actually warm. The next day was medium. And then the following day, I was in track pants and a sweatshirt because it was cold again. I mean, what the fuck's going on here?
All right, for everybody, what is medium?
Oh,
Is this a trick question?
70,
No,
75?
75.
Okay.
75, 80. Yeah.
Hey, I hate you people. All right. Tim, how's your week going?
I'm sitting here still trying to figure out the block of milk and the bag of cheese.
It's there. It's out there.
You've messed me up for the remainder of the evening. No, we're doing fine here in Georgia. Obviously everyone who lives here in Georgia is complaining that they're not getting their official winter right now, which I moved here to try to escape official winters. I wanted an unofficial winter. An abbreviated one, and now everybody here is complaining that they had a 65 to 70 degree day the day after Christmas. So anyway, they're weird here. I'm just a transplant.
Yeah, this is my first Christmas that it wasn't 75 degrees here. This is the first time. It was freezing. Well, freezing. They're gonna laugh at me, everybody on the chat, but it was in the mid 40s. That's cold for me. So we usually are, 70, 75 Christmas Day, and we didn't get that.
Yeah, that's par for the course for you guys.
Yeah.
Well, everything's been lopsided now, right? Like the whole entire northern part of the United States is suffering in their early winter, and then everybody down here in the South is apparently unhappy about that.
Yeah.
We just got a little extra summer out of it.
-4. You can live there all you want. I don't want to go anywhere. Where is who was that anyway? I think where is he?
Rug.
Where is Rug from? I can't remember.
-4. Wow.
It's -4. It's got to be way up north somewhere. Canada. Somewhere in Canada.
That's cold. That's cold.
And Amanda, how is your week and how's your weather? What the hell?
Well, so I'm in Arizona, but we have lots of snow at my house because I live in northern Arizona. It's not what you think of when you think of cactus and desert and all of that stuff. But yeah, we've got nice weather over here in Arizona. It's pretty good. We're hovering around freezing today. Not too bad. Pretty snow to look at.
But don't you guys get like cold nights out in the desert? Doesn't the temperature drop? Usually
the temperature differential in the desert between day and night. I mean, you can see 30-degree drops between day and night. It's pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna post the link to the article that we are going to kind of go through a little bit today. And I don't know when this was. I think this was just posted, so because I haven't seen it until today. So I don't know if anybody else has seen this post yet.
Yeah, we were talking about it the other day on Twitter.
Where you going to talk?
Sorry?
Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
No, we were talking about this the other day on Twitter, going backwards and forwards in a couple of the private groups. And some of the predictions actually quite interesting.
Scary.
Quite. Well, yeah, okay. Well, I'm just going to say interesting. Okay? Yeah. Scary is my other word for interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they have some people that I've never seen before on here. Brent, we've had Brent on the show. He's been on the show, and I can't remember if who the other guys were here, but I'm going to go in with the first one, and I cannot see that. So Tim, can you see it? Because I got my screen super small.
Are you asking me and it?
Yes, please, because I got 7 windows open, and it's.
And you're using your phone. All right. So, and this is analyst Tim Phillips. This is the bad. So on the face of it, 2021 has been a difficult year for the vape sector. Increasing restrictions were brought in around the world for the sale of vape products, and effects of the EVALI lung crisis and COVID had a continued detrimental effect on growth in many countries. But there are some positives that may be very important in the years to come. First, the bad. All right, everybody. Bad news first, good news second. I guess let's feel cheery at the end of all this. Yeah. In the U.S., the pre-market tobacco application process will continue to be central to the future of the industry. Millions of applications have been rejected, and many remained outstanding a year later. Anticipate many more legal challenges next year. Even if the FDA conclude their review of all 6 million plus applications next year, highly unlikely. Effective enforcement will be unlikely, leading to continued uncertainty.
Amanda,
how much uncertainty are we talking about? Because I know you're involved in this process, right? Or am I
yeah, heavily involved in this process. Yeah, I mean, our association, we took about 230 companies through that PMTA process who wouldn't have otherwise applied. And I mean, those companies comprise millions, I think, 5+ million of the total submitted. So we've been involved in quite a lot of this. Most of the companies that submitted at this point have been denied. There are still quite a few hanging on. A lot of companies still hanging on with their tobacco and menthol in the process. My company, for example, we got denied on all of our flavors, but our tobacco and menthol is still under FDA review. And so obviously that's not a good situation for anybody when they've only got tobacco and menthol that are on the market. But yeah, there has been only one approval at this point for the View Solo, which nobody actually uses in practice. And so how helpful is that approval actually? But the vast majority of these applications, if they've seen any activity, it's just been denials. And so now, I think Tim is right here. The legal challenges are in full swing. There are, dozens and dozens and dozens of cases with the FDA right now. And, some of them have had some early success in those cases. Some of them have not had early success. And so I think we're going to see a lot of mixed verdicts across different appellate divisions in the United States court system. And I think all of this will probably end up at the Supreme Court at some point. So it's definitely a space to watch in the litigation.
Are we talking about the MDO issuance? Is that what you're specifically addressing?
Yeah, I live like my whole life in FDA acronym, so apologies for the confusion on that. Yeah, when they came out and denied all of those companies, all of those market denial orders.
Right. Yeah, I know that a lot had challenged it, and I think on one of the shows we posted a kind of a running list of all the companies that had challenged it, but I had not heard much more about where most of those stood, if any had been granted and they were able to get back into the game, or they were still sitting hard on an MDO.
Yeah.
Right now.
Do you remember what they were challenging though? I can't remember.
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with effectively the decision process the FDA used to come up with that MDO initially, and that, it was a subjective opinion to issue the MDO, and they didn't consider the science submitted behind.
They basically made up a criteria that had never been published or talked about anywhere else before, and said that anybody that didn't have this unheard of thing was out, and they weren't going to look at anything else in the application. And so, to kind of answer what's happened with these cases, there have been a decent amount of them that have received early stays from the court, stays of their market denial order. So effectively, they're still under FDA review and can still be sold. And so that there have been some successes. There have been, many companies that have had their applications for stay denied. And they're, going to work that through further in the case. But it's very hard to sum up concisely because it's all, each individual case has got its own situation right now.
Yeah, because it was their way of just getting rid of millions of them is what I remember the whole article was about. It was just a simple way for the FDA to get rid of 1 million of the applicants as quickly as possible. Well, more than half, right?
Oh, that 98% of all products went out in that wave of MDOs.
Yeah.
So then my question to follow that up is, because just for clarity, because I'd read an article not before all the MDOs had gone out, because everyone knew that the September 9th date was getting closer and closer for 2021, and there was a lot of uncertainty as to whether or not companies that had not yet been reviewed would they be given sort of that arbitrary extension for another year. And I think that they had said that that they don't just graciously hand those kinds of extensions out. So when the MDOs happened and people challenged it and they got the stay, does that in effect give them a 1-year extension, or is that just sort of kind of like it could end tomorrow?
Well, so that's a very complicated answer. It doesn't give them any kind of 1-year set time frame. It basically puts them back under what's called FDA's enforcement discretion, which is where so much of the vapor space has existed for quite a long time, to be honest. This is enforcement discretion is not a new notion to the vapor industry at all. So for those companies that receive states, they're put back under that enforcement discretion. So they don't have any kind of authorization or approval. They're just not something that FDA is going after at this time while the application is under review. And so at this point, what that means is those applications go back into FDA review, and who knows what FDA is going to do with it there. That is really a very open question. These applications that were denied, they get put back in either through the courts or through FDA themselves rescinding the stay, which has happened in a number of instances. But what happens next, when FDA goes back in to look at that application, is it going to receive a different fate this time? The stay doesn't necessarily give any indication of that.
Right, so they're not guaranteed any particular amount of time.
No.
Okay.
That's
I mean, theoretically, FDA could turn around and deny someone, 2 weeks from now, and they'd have to sue again, basically. So this could get very complicated.
Obviously.
on you, Timmy.
All right. If approved, you're testing my mother's moxie tonight, aren't you? You're
Yeah,
40-year English major. Did she
Dude.
teach her son how to read well?
That
Not
box is
good,
like this,
not good, but well.
but well, that box in my screen is like this big.
Okay, no problem. I got you, buddy. If approved, President Biden's nomination for the role of FDA Commissioner Robert Califf is unlikely to alter this. Known for having critical views of flavored vape products, he is unlikely to prioritize the FDA's review process given the many other health issues that will be on his plate. A huge growth in flavored disposables and synthetic nicotine in the market are the unforeseen consequences of this policy uncertainty in the U.S., together with new restrictions on flavors and other regulation at a state level given the regulatory vacuum on the federal level. Tax on vape products at a state level will continue to be adopted in 2022, especially as the federal tax proposal has now been dropped. I kind of felt like that was the next thing to happen, right? Especially with the taxes. I mean, we can all kind of do a little dance, the fact that the federal vape tax got taken off, but we had seen this before the federal vape tax was even a consideration or even buried as pork into the Build Back Better bill. But we saw states adopting new tax laws around vaping. In some cases, they were these massive ballooning taxes that were anywhere from 65 to 90 something percent. So and based on the news that I put together for tonight, it's obvious that the states are going to, probably come, hard for a lot of people, and that's where focus really kind of needs to be too. You can't just be myopic and only look at the federal stuff.
And the way they're writing it, they're also, well, as we all know, they're all going after synthetics now as well and adding them as part of the tax. So they're making sure they cover their bases now as far as everything. Anything about this maybe FDA commissioner, Amanda?
Oh my goodness, we have covered this many, many times on our Monday Twitter spaces that we do over at AVM. I know there have been a couple of very respectable voices on Twitter that have popped up recently being optimistic about Caleb, and I respect those people. I respect those opinions. But, for me, if you go back and look at his published opinion on vape, especially flavored vape, it's pretty clear that he holds a fairly negative view towards it. And we're talking about an FDA that's now already been politicized, that he's walking into, in this era of politics and political power that's not necessarily favorable to us.
Yeah.
I would expect to see probably a lot more of the same. FDA is dealing with a lot more than just vape right now. So I don't know if dealing with what's going on with the PMTAs is going to be, a priority one early on. But I would not expect him to bring in any kind of philosophy or view of vape that is going to improve our situation with the Center for Tobacco Products and our applications.
Right. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. If he was coming in with an agenda already set in his mind for what he's going to deal with vaping, and that's my concern. If he's already been outspoken about it, and I've read a few articles, and I'm just hoping he's not coming in with that mindset and having a plan set forth already for the FDA and vaping as far as PMTAs.
Well, yeah, as far as PMTAs, I mean, that's kind of an open question. I think his attitude on flavors has been clear in the past.
Yeah.
But if you saw his Senate confirmation hearing, the holidays really threw me for a loop. I'm usually on top of it with details. It's sometime earlier in December. He wasn't questioned about vape very heavily. But the one thing when he was asked, the one thing that he did say was that, he knew people in his family that were possibly using synthetic nicotine, and a big priority to him would to deal with the synthetic nicotine loophole. So of course, anybody that found a way to survive the purge of all of these market denial orders, of course, the FDA can't have that happening. They've got to go for the total kill. So, kill us a second time. I'm not feeling good about Caleb, but like I said, I respect those people that are optimistic about it. They have important voices.
Yeah.
Well, Amanda, could him coming in now, could he just come in and just absolutely clean house completely and start from scratch again, and then the whole process or another form of PMTA get brought to the table?
You know, I don't think that is something that is likely to happen at all. I think, FDA is pretty deep into this process, pretty committed to this process at this point. If anything like that were to come about, I don't even know what the mechanism for that would be at this point. I would have to think it would have to come through some kind of litigation.
There'd be lots of lawsuits. That's what it would be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything that FDA does these days, they have to look at through the lens of possible litigation, because there is so much of that going on and so much more of that's likely to come. We've got a lot going on at FDA this spring. Mitch Zeller, the director of the Center for Tobacco Products, who's directly overseeing the PMTAs. He is leaving in April. He has been the director of CTP for a very long time. He was not the worst for us. He at least kind of showed a basic understanding of harm reduction and the continuum of risk and the role that vapor products could play. I don't think the way that this is all, played out under his, reign here has worked out to reflect that with all of the MDOs. But he, always seemed to understand what the role of vape could be, right? And so with him leaving, it'll be left on the new commissioner to fill that spot. And given, Caleb's views on vape, it's really unknown who they would put in as the director of the Center for Tobacco Products. And so, people are speculating, and I will stress it's only speculation, that around that time Mitch Zeller is leaving is when we might see activity from FDA on some of the large company applications, Juul, all of those very, very major companies. There's also speculation that we'll see the final ruling on menthol and cigarettes come down. And, of course, people are watching that because they think that might have an influence on how flavors and vape are treated. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, and what I have noticed in the last couple of weeks is the ain'ts attacking the FDA as far as tweets. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. They kind of let off on us a little bit and start to question what the FDA is doing. So that's why I was wondering if they're pushing him to make a decision when he gets in there and have some sort of ruling when he gets there, because it seems like, to me, from what I've been seeing, is they're letting us slide a little bit, and they seem to be focusing on the FDA with their tweets and their anger, the way they've decided to, which surprised me. I just saw one the other day that they were actually talking about cigarettes for once. Did you see that one? I was like, oh wow, a cigarette post finally. I was just, you're leaving us alone for a little bit. That's my concern, because I'm sure he sees those. I'm sure someone's letting them know they're out there, but they seem to putting their focus on the FDA's decisions and the way they're going about treating vaping and cigarettes as well. So I was just wondering if we should be concerned with him having a sort of planned agenda already when he walks into office.
I suspect so.
Yeah.
I think the longer it drags on, the louder the ants are going to get, and because they really only have one particular agenda, and that's to basically, get vaping completely, banned, flavors gone, and vaping banned for, in the name of the kids. So, that's their lane. They're going to stay there, and they're already mad that the one thing got the basic approval, not a full blown endorsement, but they were mad about that. And then they hate Juul, and they think we're all part of big tobacco. So their drive is there, and the longer they don't get a response from that sector of the government, when they know that that's really where the gavel, where the guillotine could fall, I imagine they'll get louder and louder and louder and louder.
We'll see, but it's very, very interesting that we had views come through Reynolds, and then Christmas Eve, we've got very low nicotine approval, like Christmas present, like out the wazoo for the company involved in that. 22nd century or whatever they're called now, and it makes no sense because we saw here in the late 80s, early 90s, like 1 and 2 milligram cigarettes. They didn't last all that long, right? And our lowest now is down to 4 milligrams. And
how do they do that? How do they do that? How do they get a cigarette to be a certain amount of milligrams of nicotine?
Genetically modify the tobacco plant. Simply.
Wow, I never even thought about it.
But GMO tobaccos, specific low output, and it's the same as it's the opposite in France, where they're actually growing tobacco specifically for nicotine extraction for the vaping industry. Mm-hmm. So they're the two differences. The other way to do it is just punch a whole lot of holes in the filter, and off you go. Just aerate it so you're not getting the same amount. But it's ridiculous. We'll see what happens. But the ants were all clapping and cheering when that product was approved. They said, "Oh, it's all about nicotine now." Rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
That's the silliest. I mean, to me, I took it as a huge slap in the face after this just year of hell that we have been through with the FDA. You know, people, us over here have been making lower nicotine, lower carcinogen, lower tar, 95% safe products all along to get tossed out like yesterday's garbage. And yet they have this cigarette in here, which to me, judging by Twitter, just seems like a stock investment scheme more than anything. Right? This cigarette's got all the carcinogens, all the tar, all the, 7,000 plus chemicals in it. It just has a little bit of the one thing in a cigarette that's not actually harmful at all. What kind of backwards logic is that? I took it as a huge affront to harm reduction. That to me is harm amplification.
It was, because New Zealand now is also talking about this, and they're praising what they're going to bring in New Zealand. And we've been going backwards and forwards fighting against like very low nicotine cigarettes for as long as I can ever remember. But yeah, that was a slap in the face. It felt like a kick in the ass that we're doing the right thing the whole way along, and then yet, bada bing, Merry Christmas, here's your approval. I went, what the? I just looked and I went, what the fuck happened? Yeah. That was my response. And then you've got doctors now in the US actually coming out and saying, "Oh, but we applaud this. It's all about the nicotine." That's absolute rubbish.
Yeah. Timmy, you're up.
All right. Now,
some good news, Tim.
Well, of course, you got to do the bad before the good. So here's the happy moments, right? The U.S. FDA has authorized a vape product, R.J. Reynolds Views, for sale in the U.S., deeming it to be appropriate for the protection of public health. This is a huge step forward. If one product can obtain approval, then so can others, right? So that's the one thing, a precedent, right? Yeah. The U.S. Senate has blocked the implementation of a federal tax on vaping because it would be deemed regressive, particularly given that it would tax some vape products higher than combustible cigarettes.
Yeah, that tax was ridiculous. The nicotine tax. That was the nicotine tax, right?
Yeah.
They were,
Which they revised once before they finally deemed it dead on arrival and took it out. But yeah, to the first point, the precedent, right? So, and I think the funniest part about that whole approval for the views was that it's not even a highly really desirable device by people like ourselves who are far more advanced vapors. I mean, if it addresses anything, it addresses someone who's trying to initially quit cigarette smoking and looking for a device to transition to. But it's a 9-year-old product or something like that?
Yeah.
That's
Is that the
basically
one that's getting sued too, or no? Which one's the one that's getting sued by the other tobacco company for using their technology?
I thought, well, that's the heat
That
not
was
burn technology.
IQOS.
Yeah, that was the heat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Reynolds sued PMI over IQOS and won,
IQOS.
which was, from a harm reduction perspective, was unfortunate because that was a product that had managed to get an MRTP
Yep.
and all of that. And then, for them to take that off the market due to, corporate disputes is a bit unfortunate. But, if you're looking at it from not necessarily a vape perspective, but a harm reduction perspective.
Yeah.
But the views, having a vape product deemed appropriate for the protection of public health is a huge milestone. Like, absolutely gigantic milestone. But it came with this really dark accompanying news that all of the Views solo flavors were denied, right?
Yeah,
and so to me, if we've got a product here that had the resources of one of the largest tobacco companies in existence, and they couldn't get their flavors through. That to me is very concerning for open vapor.
Yeah. But does this one measly approval, even if it opens the door for, say, other kinds of, say, smaller devices that use a tobacco, or maybe if you're lucky, a mint flavor or something like that, does that still kind of leave a crack in the door in the future for somehow getting flavors finally in through the process? Or do you think it essentially it just is like, okay, well, here's your gift, here's your tobacco, and have fun with that?
I don't think the door on flavors is closed yet. So I don't know if necessarily the two are related, but I still think that, flavors may have a shot if some of these companies that are still in there can figure out, how to show FDA what they're looking for if they get some kind of relief in court. It's
Right.
a very high bar they're setting, though.
Yeah, I guess I looked at it as like, well, if it's something, it's anything, it is effectively the precedent, that the door isn't completely shut at all. This is the one that keeps the door, consistently open.
Well, we all kind of got a good idea who would be next. That'll get approval. We all
Well, of course, we all know who's coming next.
We all know who's coming next.
Yeah. The ones with the most money and most market share, right?
Well, they don't even have that anymore.
No, not like they did, but
like they did,
still
yeah.
got a nice grasp on it. But the point is that they're the richest kid in the room. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You're up, Mr. Tim. And
All right.
Tim Phillips.
Tim Phillips is on fire. Is he the whole article,
No,
or do we have
no.
other opinions?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
The European Parliament has given preliminary approval to a cancer report which stated that electronic cigarettes could allow some smokers to progressively quit smoking, even if they also approved the future assessment of a flavor ban in the same report. China approved a regulatory regime for vape products, although the details of this are still not clear. This is a significant step forward compared to the potential for an outright ban. With these developments and the continued growth in the market size for vape products, if at a slower pace than we have seen in previous years, I'm broadly optimistic about the future of the category going into 2022. This is a sector that is now clearly established and here to stay, and 2021 gave us some early glimmers of hope to build on in future years.
Paul, you're up because that's you, buddy.
Oh, well, look, China now, I've been watching, I'm waiting for the government to actually come back after their little holiday between Christmas and New Year. I'm waiting to try and get a hold of the full report out of China. But they're also talking now that open systems, they want to limit, or similar to TPD, with limitations on A, nicotine levels, B, devices, open vapor, taking it back to a 2 mil system. Right? Manufacturers are going to push back against that because it's not going to work in their favor. Whether or not it's going to be a closed or an open system that they'll approve, and I disagree with what they're saying with a 20 milligram cap, because the science behind it clearly states that if you were smoking 2 packets of say, Camel, for instance, a day, and you're then trying to titrate from that level, which is equivalent to around 50 milligram in salt or 36 milligram in freebase, and then you have to titrate directly to 20 milligram, it's not going to work.
No.
You're going to go back to smoking to get what's needed.
Right.
And here in this region, Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, Indonesia, a lot of people roll their own cigarettes because of the costs.
Right.
So trying to get someone, again, to titrate from upwards of, okay, for argument's sake, up to 72 milligrams you're intaking in a period of time over the day,
Right.
and get them to 20 milligrams, that's not going to work either. But now we've got the scientific community, especially in Europe, they're coming out and stating quite clearly that if you need 50 milligram, but there must be a titration table there so you can come from 50, 40, 30 down. So be it. I agree with that. Same with freebase nicotine, 36, 24, 18, and when you're down to, 6 to 9 milligrams or even 12 milligrams for that.
Yeah.
But
what do you
it's
think
just
the max
hard.
should be? What do you think the max should be? If they were to put a cap on nicotine, what would you say would be a legitimate number? 35?
No, 36 milligram for freebase,
Yeah.
and 50 milligram for
Synthetic.
no, well, 50 milligram for salts, but
Yeah.
synthetic is a whole different animal.
Yeah.
It's a completely different animal to work with there. So no one really looks at the synthetic data sets yet and says, well, this is the optimum level. But it's hard. That's a really tough one.
Yeah.
It's a really, really tough one. But
well, I'm just going by what I started with. And I
Yeah.
think Tim started the same, I think 18, 24.
I think I was around 24 in freebase.
Yeah. And that's what I started at. Of course, we weren't, we were using mouth to lung devices. And I think that's a big part of our success. I think our progression from mouth to lung devices to where we're at today, I think is why we are successful in not smoking. And I think that's one of the problems I believe that's happening is people are getting the wrong device and the wrong nicotine levels. And I think that makes a huge difference. If the shops would stop selling the newbie, the Smock TF15 or whatever they're up to right now, and then trying to sell them, the market nicotine strength, which is what 3 and 6. That's not going to work for that person, and he's gonna be back. He's gonna come back. That's why I get a little frustrated because I've seen it happen. I'm sure all of you have seen that happen in vape shops where the newbie comes in and he's handed, two 18650 mod with a mouth, with a Smock TF 1415 and three nicotine strength, and it just pisses me off when I see that.
Amanda,
just on that, what I would add there is, vape shops are supposed to be the place where smokers can come to learn about this. That's
right.
What differentiates it from just going to the convenience store,
right?
And so if there are vape shops out there, doing that, I would say really please take a look at how you're training your employees to interact with smokers who are looking to quit, because that's gonna make them give up on vaping forever. They're gonna say, oh, I talked to people like this, oh, I tried it didn't work, and I get into it and ask them, well, what were you using? And if they're over there with this 3 or 6 milligram nicotine in a big tank, I'm like, that's your problem right there. And I've helped out a lot of people that they got started with it wrong.
Yeah.
It's all about training. I say that as a retailer. It's all about
right. Well, I think too, 6 years ago it was about 6-7 years ago with the introduction of the sub-ohm tank, and then the market kind of swinging that way with the e-liquids, knowing that they needed to produce more 3 and 6s, and they stopped producing. It was hard to find 12, 18, 24 anywhere at all, and that market just flooded to those two 3 and 6. I mean, I could walk into just about any vape shop here in Modesto, and he would probably have to dust off the bottle of 18 to give to me if I wanted it, because it just sits there. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I'm laughing about Bill. Sorry.
Oh, Bill's Bill.
Yeah, he said he's not changing to a 2022 calendar because his 2011 calendar still works.
It's still working.
It's not broken.
Amanda, have you seen a change now, probably in the last 18 months, with manufacturers now offering higher strength nicotine products, say from 3 and 6 now going to 9, 12, and 18? I've seen a lot more of that coming back now than what it was 3 to 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think there was. I mean, in recent history, we've seen a lot of the higher nicotine, 25, 50 milligram, whether that be in salts or, disposable devices or whatever. But yeah, even prior to that, I think a lot of people realized a couple of years ago that hard push to 3 and 6 was, maybe not the best way to go. We all, as a manufacturer, we continued to manufacture up to 24, throughout that whole time. And I remember when it happened that we started getting more wholesale orders of those like higher nicotine 50-50 type blends. And it's like, oh, thank God people are, coming back to this a bit and remembering what works. But now, in the last 6 months to a year, there really has been this migration to disposables. It's pretty hard to ignore.
Right. Yeah, I think too, a lot of it has to do with, as far as some of that higher nicotine levels coming back. And I think it's the hardware has gotten better. I think what we had to use for mouth to lung 7, 8 years ago wasn't as good. It leaked everything. It was horrible. It was a horrible process, where today I think there's a lot more affordable mouth to lung devices. Because if you, Paul, remember, a lot of the mouth to lung devices, that was $110 freaking RTA. It wasn't, it wasn't your RTA that you could get for $30-$40, where today, now with the market has changed, and of course with the fear of e-liquids being vanished, a lot of people are starting to realize I can't keep vaping 20, oh God forbid, 30, 60 milligrams of e-liquid a day like they have been, and they're going to have to try to control that. And I think that move to mouth to lung you're seeing the last year and a half, I think has a lot to do with the hardware and the fear that, e-liquids are going to disappear, and people trying to conserve and trying to tone down. I do 10 milligrams, 10, 15 at the max a day, and that's it. But I've known people that'll vape, 60 mil bottle in 2 days.
Wow. Yeah, see, I was on 3 milligram in a Falcon tank for a very, very long time. And then the Caliburn came out, and I really liked that. And I went back to 12, and that's what I've been on for quite a while now, probably at least a year and a half.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see it. And like I said, I think that, with the introduction to a lot, I mean, look at across the board, Hell Vape, Inikin, I'm trying to name all of them, but everyone's putting out a mouth to lung device, a nice RTA, simple to build, simple to use. I think with the simplifying the temp control and stuff like that, making it a lot easier for people to understand how it works. I think that has a lot to do with, the resurgence of the higher nicotine levels. Paul, no, Paul can read the note. Tim, you're up.
Paul can't read. That was in his interview.
It's in Australian. He can't read it.
Exactly. Okay, Paul Hare. Wait, did we miss a slide from Paul? I think you went forward a slide there real quick there, buddy. There we go.
All right, there it is.
Yeah, we had a picture of him there for a minute. I'm like, what slide is that?
There's Paul.
VP Sunikin. I don't know who that is. Formerly Chief Marketing Officer for Inikin. Is Sunikin a daughter company for Inikin? Everything ends in kin. Everything ends in kin. Policies will continue to limit the introduction of new products and technologies as the availability of tobacco cigarettes and disposable e-cigarettes continues to grow. The PMTA will likely introduce systems that will help track buyers and products to prevent them from being used by youth. This will make products more expensive, and people who smoke cigarettes use nicotine are also more likely to distrust the system that requires registration. New vaping technologies can increase coil life, deliver nicotine without using heating elements, and charge batteries much faster. However, the market for open systems in key regions continues to decline.
Yeah. Let's talk about the device that you have to register online. Are you cool with that, Tim?
No, well, I don't think that that's the government's right to obtain information about me and based on the products that I choose to use just because they have, a fear about a particular sector of our world using that product. I mean, that's why we have laws in place, right? I mean, if you're really going to regulate something and at that level, when it's you don't want kids getting their hands on it, even though we know, regardless of how hard you make it to get, they're going to find a way to get it anyway, even if it's through more legal channels. But my point is that I think that that's asinine. I don't agree with a product having to be linked to the government tracking system in order to gather data about me and whether or not I'm a viable candidate to use that product. I completely think that's horseshit.
Yeah. How about you, Paul? You willing to give Australia that information?
Well, with our prescription model out of the box.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. Never mind.
They've got that. So no, and we're trying to have that stripped away now.
Yeah.
And I've been hearing more chatter now out of the US that a couple of the states over there are now looking at a prescription model, and I'm scratching my head, going, "Please don't do that. Please don't do that.
Yeah,
that's foolish."
Yeah.
But look, with I think it was at the GTNF. Juul actually showed their new device.
That's the first one that has.
That's
that
the one,
technology.
the Juul 2 or whatever it is.
And when I saw the bit on that, I went, "Oh, here we go." Yeah. But we'll just see what happens.
Well, it doesn't function, right, unless it's registered.
No. It still works without the registration.
Oh,
I think I reported on this a while back about this, and I think I don't know what the gimmick on it was, but I think they said that you could still continue to use the device even without the official. I don't know what limits you from being able to move forward with it, but there was something that said you could continue.
Do you know anything about that, Amanda? Did you hear about that?
No, I don't. I was at GTNF and I should know more about this, but I was focused on other things at GTNF. Yeah. I didn't get the chance to check out the new Juul very much. So I don't
you didn't go to the Juul booth? You didn't go to the Juul booth?
No, I was kind of focused on other things, but yeah, they were there exhibiting it. And you know what Paul was talking about. Paul Hare, not Paul Blameyer, but this Paul here, what he's talking about with the PMTA, if a company does get a marketing granted order, MGO, we have more acronyms here in the States, it's so fun. They are required to do post-market reporting, post-market surveillance and reporting to the FDA. FDA wants information from companies about the distribution network, about sales, about, any kind of complaints or incidents that were lodged, any of that type of thing. And so there is a post-marketing legal requirement. But I think some of this data collection technology goes beyond that. And I think some people may have the intention of, using that as a means to deter youth access or demonstrate that youth are not accessing products. But I think they have a lot more to do to demonstrate to the consumers how their privacy is being safeguarded, if there are ways for verified adults not to have their data collected and tracked. And I don't know all of the details of it. I would want to really look into what that is actually entailed and what information is being collected and what's being done with it, and if you can opt out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And who's getting that information? That's what concerned. Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, two real quick things. So I found the information about the Juul 2.0. I'm going to read that really quick so everybody understands exactly what is tied to that. And then two, the thing that I would not have a problem with, and I know that there's a UK company that was actually developing some technology that had everything to do with essentially sort of like that second layer of authorization to purchase products, kind of like two-factor authentication for a human being. So if you walk into a store to buy a particular product, or walk into a vape shop to buy something, that in order to complete the purchase on the terminal in the store, you would have to have a relevant authorization app on your phone that would validate that you are that person and you're of that age. Now, I don't have a problem with something like that because that's really about security, whereas it would be tougher for children to use that same technology in a store when, frankly, people should be ID'd to begin with.
Right.
But people can maybe dupe that process if you have to have some other kind of validation that allows you to get through. I would agree to that. The data collection, no. All right, so the Juul 2.0, real quick, it's just a couple paragraphs. Pending FDA approval for a device redesign that was expected in 2019, the brand will roll out a new Bluetooth-equipped battery. When charged for the first time, the Sig-alike will ask to be paired with the user's mobile device. From there, the device will automatically lock when not paired with the owner's phone. Juul says this will prevent its products from being used by by anyone other than the owner, limiting underage access. Okay, whatever. It appears, however, here's the gotcha.
Catch.
Yeah, here's the catch. It appears, however, that the smart lock phone pairing feature is an opt-in basis. So you don't have to do it if you don't want to.
Okay.
So they're leaving it upon the consumer to decide whether or not they want to opt in so that some kid can't use their device. All right. So
like Bill said, not everybody has a cell phone either. So.
Yeah. So it says further.
Right. I'm thinking of my, customers in their 70s. You know what? That's a lot to ask of them.
I could see them standing next to their old flip phone, trying to get it to talk to it.
On the jitterbug. How do I connect the jitterbug to the Juul?
What is this? What is this Bluetooth? Where is this Bluetooth?
Yeah, it just says to finish the paragraph. Further, no mention was made of whether an age verification process would be part of the setup procedure, leaving open the possibility that a teen in possession of a cell phone could still enable the device's lock.
Yeah.
So every kid's got a phone now.
Yeah,
every kid's got a phone.
Yeah, every kid's got a phone, and every kid knows how to use that phone better than their parents do.
Right.
So that's an easy little app. I'm sure I'm sure the average kid can figure out how to get that device to work.
Kids are smarter than
we
people
were.
give them credit for. So.
A lot smarter than I was when I was 16. I know that.
Long-term adoption of sustainable technologies will depend on the success of government's environmental policies. There will be some crossover with the cannabis industry, focusing on heating elements and safer, more affordable batteries. Green materials are now used for the outer casings and packaging on some devices. The availability and price of disposable e-cigarettes suit customer buying habits for people likely to use nicotine. The issue with disposables is that no one is currently taking responsibility for the batteries and plastics once the products are used or expired. Leaders should be treating the environment with the same vigor and speed that they did to protect children from flavors and nicotine. The collective goal for 2022 should be e-cigarettes have the potential to be 95% safer for people and the environment.
So are we going to see a bin at Best Buy just for e-cigarettes? Is that what they want? Or at the convenience store? Bring in your disposable and get $1 off.
Yeah, but how many people really follow those guidelines when they're laid out? I mean, you see it all the time with just like throwing basic things away, like alkaline batteries and stuff like that. I mean, most people, unless they're sort of overtly conscious about the environment and recycling and things like that, people are just throwing batteries in the trash. So it becomes somebody else's problem, a taxpayer problem, right?
Yeah, I know that's the big question. It's been the big question for a long time. It's about the batteries and the products and stuff like that. But with the insurgence of these disposables, that becomes the issue. It just like everything, just like the what is the stupid name of that coffee machine that I have in my kitchen that with the pods?
Keurig.
The Keurig. Remember how that was the greatest thing ever invented? Then all of a sudden, 6, 7 months, 8 months down the road, everybody's like, "Hey, wait a minute! The landfills are going to be filled with all these pods. You need to make them environmentally safe," and that changed.
But I think that's an easier problem to solve than batteries,
A battery, yeah.
and plastics and things that generally aren't as biodegradable as, say, a plastic that you can, that could break down much quicker.
Do you guys talk about this, Amanda, in what you do?
Well, it's a valid concern. I mean, part of the FDA requirements in a PMTA is that you provide them with an environmental impact assessment.
Right.
It's required for a lot of EPA type regulations and stuff. But yeah, I mean, that is something that is taken into consideration, the impact the products have on the environment, how much waste is being generated, all of that sort of thing. And so I do think that is an issue for disposables, because I see a fair amount of discarded disposables out in the wild as I'm living my daily life.
Unfortunately, I see them on my hiking trip. I see them on my hiking trails.
Conversation going on around Juul pods. I remember in some of our battles in Colorado, a lot of the people who are very environmentally concerned there were vocalizing concerns about Juul pods being thrown all over the place. And so you add in the battery and the whole device, it's amplified. So, it's a legitimate concern. I don't know what the answer to it is, because Tim's very right about ideal behavior versus how people actually behave, right?
Yeah.
Can't be bothered, right?
Yeah. I was saying, I see them on my hikes, on our group hikes when we go. I see at least 2 or 3 disposables all the time on the trail.
I had a moment of duality myself. I unfortunately, here in my neighborhood, when I moved in, I lost the luxury of owning my first real mailbox. That we got cluster boxes. That's how the federal government likes to run the post office. So I have to stop at this cluster box to get my mail, and as I walked up to get my mail, I looked down, there was trash on the ground, so I'm like, man, that's rude. It's the neighborhood. Don't just throw your trash on the ground. And I looked down, and what was on the ground was a ripped open package for a disposable, and so, it was a moment of duality. I'm like, bro, like, you could have picked up the trash and not just left it on the ground. But then at the same time, I'm like applauding the person who bought the disposable. So I'm like, at least you're not smoking. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a weird thing to have to go through mentally, but I picked up the trash and I threw it away. Yeah. It's like, you got half of it right, dude. You got half of it right.
And you're right, Mallory. There isn't anywhere you can go where you don't see cigarette butts on the ground. Everywhere.
Well, Mallory brings up a good point about the cigarette butts. I mean, before they started banning smoking on beaches and stuff like that, I remember just hanging out, like trying to build like a simple sandcastle, and like 10 cigarette butts would be unearthed, while you're trying to, make some creative little design in the sand, however you want it to end up. But yeah, I mean, that is an issue. I mean, cigarette butts, I mean, you can walk down a city street and look at just in the channel of the curb, and there's cigarette butts all over the place, and those don't break down.
Yeah, right.
That ends up, and that needs to be burned off. So I don't know. It's a mess. Who's this lady? Gillian Golden, Independent British Vape Trade Association, another acronym, IBVTA. Exactly. Well, it's a lot easier in the end. Yeah, say all that stuff in the front of it. After a very difficult year in 2020, the bounce back of the independent industry in the UK has been a moment of pride for the sector. The new NICE guidance, I'm sure that's an acronym. They didn't break it down for us. Guidance published this November will accelerate the number of health professionals recommending vaping to smokers. The next evidence review by the Office for Health Improvement and Disparities, formerly part of Public Health England, will demonstrate the lingering fears about safety that have been misguided.
Yep.
So Paul.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, this is the lead into TPD 3.0 that we're seeing now. The guidance that was put out in November, and what I've read of it, it clarifies a lot of the issues and a lot of the misinformation that's been put out there, for a start. Second, it also gives the medical community a better understanding that, yes, you can walk into your doctor and you can say, well, I need to give up smoking. Here is a device. Here is a liquid that has been manufactured to these standards, bada bing, off you go. See you in 3 to 6 months and see how you're going. I think it's a damn good thing, but first and foremost, the nicotine cap needs to be lifted from 20 milligram in the UK, which they've been sitting on. And a lot of the professors now and the medical community, especially from mental health and from like drug rehabilitation and that side of the sector, they're coming across and saying, no, if I could give you a 50 milligrams of ice, I would give it to you. And they're all saying now, no, get rid of the cap. Sure. And I agree with that 100%. And having liquids manufactured to a specific standard and having the data sets and a traceability back to all the raw components, that's brilliant. We can learn a lot from the UK, but then there's also a lot that we don't like in TPD, right? Even in 2.0. But yeah, we'll have to wait until the new year to see what 3.0 comes out with. And Amanda, I'm going to throw this to you. When you were at the GTNF, there would have been a lot of chatter behind the scenes as to this program that the UK wants to come out with and the guidance from doctors. What did you take away from your time there? And again, I'm going to have to say amazing speech for getting up there and just absolutely wiping the floor. And then our very good friend Jody coming up, and her very first thing that came out of her mouth was, this is just a clusterfuck with the whole PMTA process. What did you take away from the people that you met there? And what did you learn from the other side of the world, doing things the right way?
Yeah, well, it was super interesting. I didn't hear a whole lot on the new TPD guidance, but just, being there. So I in 2020, I spent a lot of time talking to scientific consultants, right? Because a lot of what we were doing was figuring out how to get companies affordable testing and resources for their applications. And it's very interesting in talking with some of the UK-based scientific consultants about the work that they do with their companies there on TPD and how much more straightforward and affordable that whole process is in England to meet those requirements as compared to the things that we have to do for the FDA. I did see a lot of things being done right in London. I went to the West End to go see a production of Hamilton, and during the intermission, I go outside to vape, and there's like 30 other people out there vaping, and not a single person smoking a cigarette. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And walking around the streets of London, you see so many more people just sort of vaping in the wild. Oh, I like that. Clap hands. Yeah. You see so many more people vaping in the wild than you do here in America. I don't see a lot of vapors when I'm walking around here. Sometimes in larger cities, yes, but like in a small area where I live, I don't see that many people just casually walking around vaping. In London, you see it everywhere. And I think, I know there are problems there with TPD, with the nicotine limits and stuff. But I will say, I just as an observed experience of the London population, it was very encouraging, and it was also like just these pangs of mourning for what we could have if our leaders weren't idiots here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Nick Orlando in the audience. Yeah, you know what? I think I remember seeing a lot of vapors 4 or 5 years ago out in the bars and stuff like that. But I think now we've become remember the closet smokers? I think we've become the closet vapors, where we don't want to hear, that's going to kill you anymore. And so we kind of hide our vapes, or we'll take a mouth to lung device out instead of our regular setup, just so we don't have a lot of clouds and stuff. Yeah. It's gotten, I think, to where we've become the closet smokers, just hide our stuff. And I hate it. I think it's bullshit, but
I agree. I see that at the bars when I go to shows and stuff, and I go outside to vape, and it's like I'm the only one vaping. Everybody else is smoking. Yeah. Everybody. Is this good news, bad news, otherwise? The increase in independent brands present in convenience stores in 2022 will be seen as a threat by some vape shops. However, I think on balance, it will be good for the independent sector as a whole as non-tobacco owned vape brands become better known. People will better understand the importance of good quality vape shops as vaping gains wider acceptance. This will reward businesses that have invested time in smoking cessation training for their teams. I also think there will be a return to the importance of independence as more people see through the efforts of the tobacco industry in trying to influence policy.
Timmy.
Non-tobacco owned vape brands become better known. Well, you know what? I think that that's a bit of the duality that we deal with in terms of the vaping industry in general, right? Because you have people like ourselves who've been doing it for a while, and we're more well versed on the products that are available, the channels by which we can obtain them, and even our candor in a vape shop, because we go in as an informed shopper already. The majority of the time, the struggle that you have is that new vapor, that person that you're trying to get away from smoking or has made a decision to try to change to vaping as that healthier alternative, and they don't know really where to turn. And so the vape shop for them may seem like a very kind of ominous, daunting place to walk into, because it can be you can be shy in a place like that, because if you don't know what you're really talking about or you don't really understand it, it can seem a little overwhelming, because you might be embarrassed that you don't understand the lingo or the vibe in a vape shop, whereas they're going to go to the convenience store and the place like that. So I think each has its place based on the customer that you're trying to address. I would like to see more young, early on vapors utilize the vape shops first, primarily because they have a better chance at getting that real help that they're looking for in terms of guidance, like, hey, start here, use this, go that route. Whereas dude behind a counter at the QT isn't going to know squat about vaping. He's going to be like, what do you want? Oh, okay, here. And then he's going to throw it on the counter and you're on your own, right? So it would be nice to be able to find a way to channel people just getting started vaping more towards the vape shop experience, if that vape shop can really benefit them and not sell them the smock dual battery mod with the TFV 15 on top. There's no TFV 15 yet.
Not yet.
Well, there probably is by now. This is a question for Amanda. Moving forward with AVM and into the new year and further forward, would you be interested in putting together some form of training program for the shops and for the manufacturers that you represent? Amanda's muted.
I think she's muted. You're muted.
My dog was making noise, so I was trying to be polite. So then I end up being that guy who's talking while muted.
I do it too. It's
we
all
all
good.
do it. We all do it.
Yeah, right. So, AVM does a lot of things, right? We started off just solely helping companies apply with FDA so that they didn't, get forced out of their business. And, then we started working on, taxes and, lobbying and public relations and all this sort of stuff. But one of the things that we do work on is, providing resources for our members. And so, we're working on this new social media network for our members right now, just to kind of come off of Facebook, because that's a lot of that's coming under scrutiny and it's getting a kind of attention. We want a safe, private spot for to be able to communicate with our members and things. But part of what we're doing in our social network is we've got all of these different areas of resources for retailers, resources for manufacturers, resources for distributors, and we're definitely working on a lot of tools to help out the retailers. And I know that a lot of our vape shop owners do a great job with this sort of thing. But we're always down to offer expertise and offer help, implementing, training programs, so quality control programs, all of that sort of thing.
I have a question. This is a question for the panel in general. So I know that when a customer walks into a vape shop, based on FDA guidelines, we really can't make any medical claims that it's better. And I also know that vape shops are hamstringed to some degree with regard to what they can't say, what they can do for a customer,
Right.
and stuff like that. What would happen? Now, this would really take some moxie on some other people. Is there, and this is only because I know the UK is starting up this process. I can't remember the name of the company, but they have some boots on the ground vape stores, and they're going to have these little vape clinic people where you can book like 30 minutes worth of time with a person who basically is, it's one-on-one with that person for 30-minute intervals. And they question them, like, how much do you smoke? Like, where do you work? Like, they ask basic information to try to help give you the proper item to help you with that transition, with that quit journey. So I don't go to vape shops very often, if at all. I'm mostly an online person, self-reliant. If I walk into a vape shop, can I get that specific kind of attendance by a person behind the counter to give me that sort of guidance, or is that vape shop hamstringed by the ability to be able to kind of help somebody that way? Are they at liberty to just say yeah and ask the same questions and offer the same kind of assistance? Are the vape shops at all hindered by that, or they walk into some gray area there?
The one planted the vapes here in Modesto, he does that.
Okay.
Actually, even some of the employees do too. But they'll ask, the same questions pretty much. How much do you smoke? How long have you been smoking? When do you smoke the most? I've heard those questions, but I've never heard, like, I think knowing what type of job someone has too. Is it a stressful
a
job?
higher stress job versus a lower stress job? I'm maybe throwing out things that aren't as relevant. I guess the whole point is I'm trying to make something.
They just can't say it's going to save your life. They just can't say that.
Right. Well, what I was thinking is
aside from health claims, it's pretty fair game, and it is a good idea for. It's not only a good idea. I mean, I think that's really best practice when you've got somebody coming in to a vape shop to go through those kinds of questions. Are you a smoker? How heavy of a smoker are you? Have you tried vaping before? Because that's a whole other set of questions of what didn't work before. And then giving recommendations on device types, nicotine strengths. Flavor profiles that certain consumers might find more appealing than others. All of that sort of thing is conversations that good vape shops should be having. Just any business entity is not allowed to get into any kind of, discussion of any sort of health related issues whatsoever.
Okay, so where I was going with this is, and I was saying it's all about paying it forward, right? Because one of the things I think that the majority of us vapors enjoy doing as part of our own quit journey is helping people as much as we can. And we do that in our social media channels all the time. That's why we have vape groups and people can ask questions and get that assistance. Very rarely, though, do you find like the new vapor that usually kind of every now and again, or maybe they're the quiet ones. My point is that is there any stipulation or any kind of a catch to, say, someone volunteering their time at a vape shop, say, 5 hours a week, right? So say you've got time on your hands. Not a lot of us have that, but what if, like, say somebody like myself, I have no affiliation to that vape shop. I'm not employed by that vape shop. I don't get a check. I don't get a kick down. I get no residual from them whatsoever. And I walked in and said to the vape shop owner, hey, look, I know that, you got your own thing going on, but what I'd like to offer is my time. I want to volunteer an hour in the shop every day and just sort of like, you can set me over in a corner over on the other side of the shop and I'll be like the random Joe. So when the customer comes up to the counter looking for particular assistance, the things that you can't do, I could do because I'm just basically a customer sitting here in the shop. Right. I'm not actually attached to the store. So you could theoretically send that person over to me and I could sit with that person and I could show that older vapor how to change the coil. I could change it for them, or I could do things like that because technically I'm not someone who's employed and under that kind of, watchful eye, right?
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, I was just thinking is, because we're getting to a point now where things are going to be harder to get online. People are going to have to use the store channels to buy items. that might be a good suggestion for people in their local community who have the ability to spend some extra time, is going and volunteer time at the vape shop and just sort of, maybe just be that person in the corner. Well, the guy can go, well, you see Joe sitting over there? He's a good customer of ours. He can help you out, and send you over there. And you kind of become an extension arm of the vape shop to kind of help people on that quit journey with the, how do you market that? How do you put that out there and say, hey, local vape shops are, you don't want to advertise it too much.
Yeah,
but,
you wouldn't want to do it too much.
You're getting into a pretty hardcore gray area there, Tim.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, because you almost become a liability to the shop too.
Well,
some way. He's kind of.
I don't want to incur harm to the store. I was just thinking, you could be a.
That happens naturally sometimes. I mean, you've always got those customers that like to hang out in the shop and visit and get chatty with folks and stuff. And a lot of the vapors enjoy talking to other people and other vapors about their experiences with it. So a lot of times that sort of thing kind of happens naturally. But I don't know, like kind of purposefully doing something like that. That'd be that'd be potential liability.
Do you think the FDA would want would they want something like that to be introduced into the vape shop as part of regulations, where we can have that kind of interaction, where we can actually go through that process and say, hey, we can, as far as helping them understand where they need to be, what device to have and stuff like that. You think that they would add some sort of regulations for shops to have something like that? Would that be impossible to do? I mean, it'd be basically training an employee, but like Tim's saying, what they're doing, it's a separate entity of the shop. I don't know if the FDA would say, well, we want somebody from the FDA sitting in your shop coaching people to, that's not going to happen. Never mind. I don't think I want an FDA employee in my shop. I'll go talk to him. He's going to try to get you to get on the patch first, and then maybe the gums, and eventually work your way to vaping. Yeah, no, never mind. Bad idea.
But if on that, if there was an accredited course for vape shop like managers, owners, and for the staff that was put together, and to actually work in a vape shop, you must have some form of understanding before you just go in behind the counter and, here's a TFE 24. You need this and you need this and you need this. No. Simplicity sometimes is actually the best answer. A very simple device to get you started, and once you're off the cigarettes, if you'd like to then progress into something a little bit different, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Well, what you're kind of saying is a standard set for every shop, that everyone follows this. I wouldn't. If I owned a shop, I would love that. The thing that I've noticed is, some of the shops, like I've gone to over and over and over again, and they'll sell someone a product, and then 4 weeks later down the road, they may be in there, and now they can't find that coil. That's the thing that drives me insane, is where I think if you're going to do that, you're going to sell 80% of your clientele that one product. I think you should keep the coils in stock as much as possible. I mean, and not have that person go, oh, well, here's another tank, and then get them down. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people quit, because I ran into that problem with a couple of my friends, where they're like, dude, I bought this is the newest, latest, greatest thing. Now I can't find coils for it. And I bought it at that shop. And he's like, oh, well,
I like the fact that Aspire and Inican, right, both of those companies, right, and I'll pick those two out. Both of them have been around longevity. That's what I was laughing at. And
it's going to get higher as the show goes. It's going to be the TFV 60 by the time
it'll be the TFV over 9,000 by the end of the show. Don't worry about it. But those two companies responsibly have done the right thing. Inican especially, their coils fit in all their different devices. That that is smart from a business perspective. Aspire have been there and they've not changed. Sure, they've given a couple of options, but that coil also now fits in multiple devices.
Yeah, that they have that one coil that goes way back to the beginning with the what is it? The one they use for the mouth and lung and everything.
PVCs.
Yeah,
PVC.
that thing goes
The
back.
original.
The original. It's still out there, and now some companies have even adopted that coil as one of their coils for their tanks because they just realized that coil is not going anywhere. It's on the market. It's in every shop. Let's get to our friend Brent.
All right, so we're talking about Canada now.
Canada. This is for you. Who's our Canadian viewer?
Well, you got Rog, who's close. He's up. Yeah. He's up there. If Rog's still here, he's up there.
Yeah, Bill. Bill.
Yeah, we got a few. All right, so Brent Stafford, Regulator Watch. Cruelty at a population level. The best describes the impact of newly introduced public health interventions to reduce the access and appeal of nicotine vaping products to Canadian youth and those young adults who have never smoked. In a matter of months, Canada went from being a world leader with a legalized and regulated nicotine vaping market to a country on the brink of a public health disaster, driving hundreds of thousands of people back to smoking and birthing a dangerous, uncontrolled black market.
Yeah. Can blame us for that, correct? You blame the US. It's easy.
No, not only the US. You can blame Australia a lot for that because they're still part of the Commonwealth. Okay, so no, and they look to us for guidance, and we fucked everything up. I'll be honest.
Right? I still don't understand that whole thing. I mean, the Queen is on your money.
Yeah, I know. We're part of the Commonwealth.
The Queen is on both of your countries' money, and yet you do not adopt the vaping policies of England, which I still don't understand. I don't get that whole thing.
I know. It's stupid. It really is stupid.
It is.
And I hope 2022 we can actually sit down properly again with the TGA and actually have a proper discussion and go, hang on a second, you've done completely the wrong thing. Oh, it's all about the kids now. Rubbish. Go away. Let's start again.
I love when Paul says rubbish. Rubbish. We'll have to get the Queen on the show. Maybe she'll have some input.
She's still young and spry.
How do you turn on this computer?
Yeah, but you know it's funny.
And the corgis. Get the corgis out.
It's funny to me how everything kind of pulled a 180 because I see that. I don't want to call it a meme on Twitter all the time, but you see it seems to be growing all the time. Now it's probably like John's computer screens right now where they're so small you can't read it. But on Twitter you see that one little slick of like all the different health organizations, all at one point endorsing vaping. And then, and now they've got this complete 180 view of the whole thing. And it's like, where did that view go? Why did it disappear I mean, we can make all the presumptions we want. It's just funny to me how they were all backing it. Well, I don't know about entirely backing it, but at least it was encouraged by the long view of vaping for people to get off of smoking. And now they're like, no, can't have vaping.
There it is.
Yeah, Health Canada.
Yep. The same as Australia with the TGA, Therapeutic Goods Administration.
Will there be a prescription plan in Canada?
Oh, don't, please. No, don't.
I mean, a lot of their policies have been affected by things that are happening here in the U.S. I think a lot of it took effect during EVALI. When that started, I think Canada changed that's about the time Canada changed their mind on vaping, and you started seeing some changes there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I hate to see that, but you have any points on that there, Amanda? Do you do any business with Canadian companies?
No, I mean, you got to pull Bill up here for this segment. He's far more qualified to speak on this than I.
Bill?
My knowledge is very limited outside of the United States. It is a full-time job keeping up on our lunacy here, and my heart definitely goes out to Canada because it seems like they may have it worse than us. Not sure who's winning that ignoble prize there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that is the. Oh wait, there's. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Perhaps this understanding is the main reason why opposition to the proposed flavor ban appears to be gaining momentum. In December, Health Canada held an unprecedented public webinar to explain how vaping regulations are developed and address questions from consumers. While it is late in the process, the results of this webinar portend a crack in resolve and leave some observers hopeful the flavor ban won't see the light of day. Health Canada made plain there will be no ban in 2021. Could that ban happen in 2022? Yes, it could. However, the coming year triggers a legally mandated review of the science, regulations, and overall efficacy of the TVPA. Let's hope reason will reign.
And that was. Oh, that's the last one right there.
Okay. So we're moving on. I'm still reading.
I don't. Yeah, I don't have anything else for Canada. I don't really pay attention.
Yeah,
to
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Sorry,
I certainly
Bill. Sorry,
think
Bill.
I think Canadians should be at least be vigilant and continue to the advocacy fight, regardless of what's going on.
Nope.
Jim
Here we go.
McDonald, Vaping 360. It's nearly impossible to overstate the magnitude of the current threats to vaping in the United States. It's almost as though all of the strategies and goals of the tobacco control opposition to vaping have converged at this moment to hit vaping from every direction simultaneously, with help possibly from all three branches of the federal government. What it adds up to is hydra-headed menace to the independent vaping industry, which has already been badly wounded. If we remain on the current course, vapors will no longer have access to legal open system products like bottled e-liquid, and even closed system products will be too expensive to make switching attractive to many people who smoke. And that's a crucial thing, and it's been brought up several times, is that you can't take the resolve, you can't take the fix to a lot of this and make it more expensive than the more harmful component which we're trying to get people away from. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
None.
Amanda?
Oh, well, I almost always agree with Jim McDonald's takes on things, and I like his wordsmithing there, the hydra-headed menace. I mean, you can't overstate, the threats in 2022 in the U.S. We're getting it from the FDA. We're getting it from the United States Congress. We're getting it from these Bloomberg-funded groups lobbying private companies. We're getting it from the states. We're getting it from the cities. We're getting it from the counties. I mean, if there is a place that they can come at us, like, it's happening, right? And so we always have so many moving parts we have to deal with at once, because any one of these things could be an existential threat, much less the specter of all of them. So yeah, we've got 50 states we have to deal with. It's a lot.
Yep.
Agreed.
Timmy, are you Amanda? You can stick around if you want to. Tim's about to do the news and advocacy part of it. If you have to go, it's fine. We understand. But if you want to stick around,
I might go get some more water here in a second, but I can hang around. I'll try to talk.
You got it. Perfect. Let me start Tim's. I know, Tim, I didn't fix your bumper yet, but I promise I'll get it fixed.
You're gonna force me to do it. Go ahead. I don't have my hair down today, so headbanging is completely out of the equation there.
Tim is that paperboy that throws the paper at you.
No, that music just takes me back to like being like a teen and going to this seedy little record store, and I didn't know shit about Metallica, and they had 2 records in the bin. Ride the Lightning was out, and Kill 'Em All were sitting there, and I can't tell you how many like for an hour I'm like, I don't know. I only had enough money to get one. Like, which one do you buy? And I didn't buy Kill 'Em All first. I ended up buying Ride the Lightning, so I had to work my way backwards. But just brings back a lot of memories, smells, and things like that.
Yeah.
So good old days. All right, we're tapping today, kids. Last week we didn't tap. We didn't tap at all, right? So we didn't know tappity tap. I know I disappointed a lot of people last week, but we made a conscious decision to not do the news because we had two people on and we had to entertain. Right? We had Bogan and we had Dr. Colin. So, we had to make room for the voices. So news is always there, right? So I had plenty of time to look around, and I always chime in and say I've got a wonderful little angel on my shoulder that PMs me articles all the time. He knows who he is. Yeah. I'll just say his calendar still works. So if that gives it away, we all know who we're talking about. All right, so we got 2 articles and some vape advocacy. We're going to talk about a lot of it all touches on advocacy in some way, shape, or form. Some of it is about advocacy that we have no recourse on, right? But it's just information that everybody should be aware of. Let me bring up the visual aids. Let me add another person to this.
We love the pop-ups.
Yeah. All right. Well, even if it helps, pictures are always nice. Look at that clean shot. It's not it's not that canned picture of the person holding the Pro Tank 2 with the the ego twist, from 10 years ago.
That's probably a good 5-6-year-old picture.
I'd say it's a little bit more current. I don't think those are chubby gorillas. Those are like the older school ones. All right, so we want to talk about a couple new state laws. These were things that were passed in the year previous. This is why we pushed the advocacy path to try to fight some of these things. But there were a couple bills that did actually get through, and there are some changes coming to 2 particular states in terms of bills that actually passed. So as of January 1st, 2022, there are 2 new state laws that are going into effect regarding vaping in both Illinois and Oregon. And I do remember talking about these, trying to get people to use the open commentary period, trying to get people to speak out on these things. Unfortunately, all those efforts were for naught. They still passed these bills. So for Illinois, now these don't affect anything nationally. These are obviously state focused. But for Illinois, they passed SB 0512, which has a more formal name of the Preventing Youth Vaping Act, and that's going to take effect in Illinois. So I wanted to read the definitions around that and how they quantified electronic cigarettes, just so everyone is clear on exactly what they were wrapping up into that. So any device that employs a battery or other mechanism to heat a solution or substance to produce a vapor or aerosol intended for inhalation. Any cartridge or container of a solution or substance intended to be used with or in the device or to refill the device, so they're addressing not only closed but open systems. And any solution or substance, whether or not it contains nicotine intended for use in the device. That includes your zero-nic e-liquids, right? So they're really coming down hard on all of that stuff. So basically, in effect, any product that does not have an active PMTA in effect, those products would be considered adulterated and prohibited for sale. So, house juices and things like that, or anybody who had an active PMTA and were, issued, they needed more information or things like that, or they opted not to refile, all those then become adulterated products and they're no longer prohibited for sale. There is one little catch-22 in all of this, which I found was a little interesting, and that was where they addressed products that were first sold prior to August 8th, 2016, but still required a PMTA for obvious reasons. There's an exemption for products prior to that time period, but they said if any of those products had an acceptance refusal, refused to file, or have received MDOs, would still most likely be considered adulterated. So even though there's an exemption, if their PMTA is not currently active and still within the process, they would still be treated as an adulterated product and would have to come off the market. Apparently, the law cannot apply to tobacco-free items such as e-cigarettes that contain synthetic nicotine or CBD-related products. So those are still fair game within the state and can still be sold. Though the trickier ones will be any of those companies that have MDOs or are legally bound to pull their products off the shelf. Here's the kicker on this one, though, and sounds a little bit like Australia. So anyone found violating the said law would be guilty of a Class 4 felony, which carries a 1 to 4 year prison sentence and fines up to $25,000. So any vape shops that are trying to pull loopholes or send people out back to the special closet, just be careful. You don't want to end up in prison over something like that. So I do think that this doesn't completely compromise Illinois in overall. Overall, but clearly it's going to narrow the product availability for a lot of people in that state. For Oregon, HB 2261 takes effect and prohibits the shipment of inhalant delivery systems to any person other than a distributor or a retailer. Inhalant delivery systems are defined as a device that can be used to deliver nicotine in the form of a vapor or aerosol. We try to get in a little bit more specificity down here. There's a nice little chart here that kind of breaks everything down in terms of what's covered under the bill. But it pretty much sounds to me like it's a shipping ban. They're not going to be able to get anything shipped into. So it's kind of like New York, right?
Right.
So they can't get anything shipped in Maine. You hear about it all the time. People can't get stuff shipped into them. So bottled e-liquid with or without nicotine. Yes, language covers a substance in any form sold for the purpose of being vaporized or aerosolized. Open system, open tank ends device. Yes, that's covered in the bill. Open system ends components, tanks, coils, atomizers, batteries. Yes, none of that will be able to be shipped into the state. Closed system ends, e.g., or including pods, cartridges, or disposables pre-filled with nicotine-containing e-liquid. Yes. The only thing that's still allowed, closed system ends, pod, cartridge, or disposables pre-filled with non-nicotine-containing e-liquid, which this means this type of product, pre-filled CBD or THC vapor device.
Right.
I don't give a damn about whether or not you like to vape THC or CBD products. I'm just saying it's kind of funny. That's getting the pass, but THR is getting the ixnay. So it looks like Oregon is going to be the one that's going to suffer probably the most.
You could still get you can. I don't know how they can get batteries tied into that. I mean,
so I think the thing that makes this actually it doesn't affect them nearly as much. That's my next.
Maybe the shop can't get batteries, but you can order batteries from 1-800-batteries.com.
Yeah, but I think that things like that probably are easier to skirt the process, right? Yeah. Because it's a battery. It clearly states on batteries now that these were not made for vaping.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the the HG2s and the Sony VTCs and even the
Samsung.
Well, the Molecells that's stamped on the side right there that these are not intended for vaping, even though everyone knows that's what that's for. But there's, unless it's Galeese or somebody like that who basically brands and markets to using batteries for vaping, batteries would be easy to get. Wire too, things like cotton, things like that.
Yeah.
Going to be interesting to see what Oregonians. Is that how you quantify them?
Sure.
I don't know, Oregonians. So anyway, so there's that. So just to be aware, if you watch the show and you're from Illinois, you're from Oregon, these are changes coming down the pike as of January 1st. All right, let's talk about this knucklehead. You can't see it.
Who is that knucklehead?
Let's talk about this knucklehead. Can you guys see that? Is that any better? Do I have to go to
Oh, really? Not this guy again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So this guy, Kwame, he's the AG in Illinois. Raul. Well, that's probably Kwame Raul announced a consent decree with Juice Man LLC. This was just recent on December 22nd. I don't know much about the history of why he went after this particular company so wholeheartedly. Yeah. Apparently, he also went after Juul a little bit, like everybody went after Juul. But he came down hard on Juice Man. Juice Man is not even from Illinois. They're a California-based They're a California-based company. And this guy decided he wanted to bring the hammer down on them based on what he perceived as being, unsavory marketing tactics and basically trying to market to the kids. But this ruling that he was able to get through as of the 22nd of December effectively prohibits that company from operating within the state of Illinois.
Wow.
So they can't have their products of any kind come into the state of Illinois whatsoever. The consent decree resolved allegations the company allegedly developed and marketed its products to attract minors. I think that that's entirely subjective. I think that that's one person's opinion. However, you substantiate that, and we'll go into why I think maybe he was able to maybe win that case a little bit on that factor. Juice Man is a well-known company who manufactures and sells e-cigarettes and accessories through its website. The lawsuit was filed in 2020 against Juice Man, California-based, alleging the company intentionally developed nicotine products that appeal to minors and marketed them to those same minors. Now, I did do a little research on Juice Man. I'd never heard of them. I was actually not familiar with that company, but I did happen to look, and it looks as though they do have their own juice lines that they sell.
I was just Googling. I wasn't familiar with that either. It seems like they picked a really interesting target here.
Yeah,
it's very obscure. It doesn't make sense to me at all.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I was completely lost. Like, I was expecting to find out that Juice Man was like a parent company that was a subsidiary to a bunch of other smaller companies, that had lots of products under their hand, but apparently they were not. And so I'm like, okay, well, they seem like the average Joe kind of vape company, but this Kwame guy decided he wanted to go after him. The lawsuit essentially pursued Juice Man for offering products in a variety of flavors deemed attractive to kids, such as pink lemonade, cotton candy, unicorn frappe. I don't drink cold coffees. Frappuccinos, and cherry blue cola as examples, and based on 2019 New York Tobacco. Or the National Youth Tobacco Survey results identifying candy, desserts, and other sweets as top flavor categories chosen by the youth. The lawsuit also additionally alleged that Juice Man unfairly and deceptively marketed its products to minors. And here's why. This is why I think he was able to maybe push the agenda about why they potentially marketed to the youth. But if you're going to say they did it, then you're going to have to say everybody fucking did it. Yeah. Is that they use social media as part of their advertising campaign.
Oh, God. Welcome to 2020.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like there isn't one vape company that didn't use social media channels, i.e., Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, to market those products. We all know the kids are out on those social media platforms. Yeah. They're going to see it anyway. Again, I'm still miffed as to why he went so hard after this particular
I'm looking at their packaging. I'm looking at their packaging. I see nothing wrong with their packaging.
Right, and that's the whole thing. Is it just seems like it's too convenient for him to cherry pick anybody at this point and say, well, if you've got a flavor that's something other than dirty toilet water, you're basically marketing to kids.
I'll
right?
Put yours back up, but
that's fine. People, right? So. And they may have changed that. We don't know if they went through a packaging redesign at some point in the game. We don't know the examples he was using at that time. I'm pretty sure most companies probably tried, like Twist even redesigned their brand names of their e-liquids and stuff like that to try to kind of tamper down on some of the rhetoric around names of flavors and things like that. Apparently they used hashtags that he thought were offensive as well. Hashtag vape babes, hashtag vape porn, hashtag vape life. These were all factors mitigating his decision to go after this particular company.
I can tell you right now.
Prison, I've still got the Vape Life T-shirt.
Yeah.
Vape Life. That's
Vape Life T-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
Wow.
tell you that hashtag vape porn will get your pictures not shown on Instagram. I guarantee you, if you use that hashtag on your pictures, the only people that will see it is people that follow you.
Right. So I guess just to quantify some of this, there was a little section that says, in his lawsuit, Attorney General Raoul said Juice Man's advertisements use bright colors, God forbid,
Ooh, that font too. I bet you it's the font.
cartoon characters, and children's cereal. A number of flavored products distributed under Juice Man's Zonk line relied on packaging that featured graphics similar to those in comic books. Juice Man also marketed variety packs of flavors, including watermelon, strawberry, and mixed berry as lunchbox assortments. Furthermore, Raoul argued that Juice Man's age verification system allows the company to easily interact with and promote products to minors. So, I mean, again, a lot of this is just subjective, right? I mean, you could say that about 100 different vaping sites out there. But at any rate, I mean, again, he's on Twitter pounding his chest about this big win that he got this one company prohibited from being able to ship products into his state. Doesn't answer to the other, multitudes of companies, including Juul, who can still get products into his state. So I called him out. I tweeted against him and used my own logic on that.
Did you get blocked?
No. I don't think he's a government official. I don't think he's allowed to block me. I think he has to allow me my First Amendment right. So anyway, there's that. So so basically, in the end, the consent decree that prohibits Juice Man from selling or distributing e-cigarette products to retailers and consumers located in Illinois. But wait, there's more. Juice Man is also prohibited from selling e-cigarette products to distributors or wholesalers that intend to distribute or sell those products to retailers or consumers in Illinois. So not only can they direct ship into retail vape shops and direct to consumers, they can't even supply wholesalers or other distributors that would supply those same vape shops and or consumers.
That's the gagger right there.
Yeah, so they're done. Juice Man is cooked in Illinois. AG Raoul also filed a lawsuit against Juul in 2019, like everybody else, and litigation is still yet ongoing. He's probably just trying to get that $14.5 million settlement that he's going to apparently put towards helping to get kids off of vaping. Like Juul's just going to go 14.5 million. That's a drop in a bucket. His office is also continuing to investigate other e-cigarette manufacturers as part of an ongoing investigation into the e-cigarette industry. He has also urged the FDA to ban flavored tobacco products and strengthen EC guidance and enforcement. So, if you can get this guy out of office in any way, Illinoisans.
I've got a few friends in Chicago.
Yeah. This guy is not on your side. So, if you want to go and counter his points, he does post on his Twitter page, and he did. This was one that came up in the last day or so. He's really happy about his consent decree. If you feel you want to offer an opinion on that nicely, without slinging slurs all over the place, go make your points. Let him know that you vehemently disagree. All right. So there's that. Now let's talk about advocacy, right?
Dun, dun, dun.
Let's talk about these people, right? Here's people like Liz, right? So the one thing that we talk about in the advocacy space quite often, and it's a hashtag that we throw out quite often, is that we vape, we vote, right? If you have people in an electable office that don't support your views, and you could say that some vapors are single issue voters. I think that may not be entirely true. I think we all have a few things that we probably particularly care about, but vaping is important to us. And so, as we all know, we're coming up on the 2022 election year, and there are a lot of House seats that are going to be up for grabs.
Yes,
we're going through our rotation at this point. And you have an opportunity to vote whether or not you want that person to represent you in your ward, in your state in general. They're going to take a House seat, and they're the ones that are going to help drive policy, right? Because almost every bill typically starts in the House, then goes to the Senate, and then to the president. So I'm not trying to pick on sides here at all. I don't know if this article was specifically aimed at trying to bring attention to this. I didn't really read the crux of it because most of it had nothing to do with vaping whatsoever. The reason why this list was generated is these are people that are in crucial seats that could potentially swing the weight of that particular branch of government one way or the other, whether it goes full, stays Democrat or goes to Republican side. The important thing to point out here is that this is a list of people who are looking to get reelected, and all of the people on this list, and you can study it. I'll even make it bigger because I think it is a little too small.
That's what she said.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I don't need that thing. All right, so all of the people here on this list, with the exception of the 2 Virginia representatives,
I see what you're
and
doing.
I don't live in Virginia anymore, so I got no skin in the game when it comes to the Virginia representatives. All I know is these 2 are excluded from the conglomerate. All of the people on this list, Washington, Pennsylvania, Oregon, New York, Nevada, New Jersey, Minnesota, MI's Michigan, correct? Kansas, Illinois, Iowa, Connecticut, California, and Arizona. Again, all of these people on this list were people that voted in favor of a total flavor ban at the federal government level.
Yep.
So these are people that, if they are in your state or in your ward, I think their ward is listed here, 1, 10, 45, 49, 05. Obviously, you're not going to vote on all of these people depending on where you live in those states. But these are people that will appear on the ballot. And you have an opportunity to use your voice as in the form of advocacy to say that you don't agree with these people representing you and that they don't have your interests in mind. So if we can't necessarily fight some of the other litigation, legislation that gets passed through and stuff like that, we certainly can remove the people that support this legislation. So those of you, and I'm pretty confident everybody here who's legally available to buy a vape, legally has the right to vote, and you can register to vote in your state, and that's what you use that voice for, and that's to support or disapprove of people who don't support your views. So I will share this link to John.
Share that link. Yeah.
You can pull this list together and you can go through. I don't know any of these people specifically. Obviously, there's no big names on here because these are all House representatives.
Small seats.
Right.
So one thing that leaps out at me, so this Representative Sherrill from New Jersey's 11th is the one currently pushing the synthetic nicotine bill through Congress. So he's got a few strikes against him there.
Right. Yep. And New Jersey is kind of already in a compromising situation anyway. But again, I just think it's paramount that if you ever cared about anything in your life and you're like, fuck it, I'm not voting. Like, what a pain. Like, it's not going to change the outcome or anything. Like, if you felt fleeting in that moment, you don't know. The point is that you can get the people around you, the people that are in your family, your friends and stuff like that, who care about you and are happy to see you choose a healthier alternative to getting you away from smoking. Maybe you've helped other people in your family, or they're just ecstatic to know that you have made this jump. Have them understand that there are people that represent them as well that don't support you either. And so, I think that if you're angry, if you've ever been angry, now's the great time to be angry and use the power of your vote to get rid of these people. You could obviously do some research on the people that are opposing them and reach out to them and get their view on that particular subject as well.
Very good idea, Tim. Yeah.
Right. So, don't just assume the other person supports vaping.
He may be worse.
Exactly. So, you do have to take, some initiative to try to figure out, where you're placing your vote properly. But just know none of these people gave a damn about you. They all voted for a total flavor ban. Exactly.
That's what they get.
So, and so it
pop-ups.
Just a pop.
You might have to drop a Snoop on her before the.
we want guys like Snoop. We want Snoop. That's what we want.
Right on. So anyway, that's your advocacy angle for tonight, and I hope that you guys use the power of your vote to do the right thing. And that, my friends, is your
It's
news.
the news.
Back to you, John, in the studio.
In the studio in sunny California.
All right, let me stop sharing here for a minute. Okay,
I got you. I got you, Tim.
no problem.
Amanda, we want to thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate you. This is your second time on with us. I think you came on
Yeah,
before.
I think Shar and I were both on last time.
You were?
But yeah, thanks for having me back. As I think I was happy to get Nick's call today. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll be happy to fill in. It was a little last minute invitation, so
Perfect.
happy to do it. Happy to help out.
Yeah,
it's interesting too. You guys are really like making me realize how much more I need to learn about like international advocacy.
it's
Yeah, we sucked Paul into this vacuum, and now we got to learn about everybody else's country too.
well,
So.
yeah. We've been focusing on the U.S. and I figured we need somebody, that can give us a little bit more information on what's going on in the EU and Australia. And Paul,
I've been in the trenches for way too long. Amanda knows that. Everyone else does.
He's been a special guest so many times. We just said, you know what, screw it, Paul. You're part of the team now. Come on aboard. Yeah, no, we're glad to have Paul on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
but it's always good to hang out with you, Amanda, and actually shoot the shit and talk. But you actually taught me a couple of things today, and I'm like, how am I going to play this from another angle? Now I've got a few ideas.
So before we go, we got about 5 minutes here. Amanda, can you tell us what you're hoping for in 2022 with this industry?
Yeah, so there are a lot of big things I'm hoping for. Obviously that federal vape tax, that was a huge effort to get that thing taken out. But I don't think anybody's under the illusion that we've seen the last of that, right? Like, we've got to deal with that. We've got the synthetic nicotine bill moving federally we have to deal with. Those two issues, synthetic and taxes, will be an issue in a slew of states. Flavor bans will always be proposed. Meanwhile, we're fighting the final boss over at the FDA. And not to mention there is this huge media battle going on, the pushback against misinformation. We've got the midterms coming up where I think that can be a really critical role for advocacy to play in some of those, key races where it's tight, really getting in there and backing candidates that support us, opposing candidates that don't, and starting to get sort of savvy in some of our political activity in this next year is that we see a lot of very credible, very intelligent, very well-respected and well-credentialed public health advocates starting to really get loud and speak on the truth of what's going on. I'm seeing in a lot of my advocacy activities, people starting to question that Bloomberg-funded complex of dark money lobbying, and people really starting to push back against that. So I think there's a lot of reasons for hope, but I think this is going to be, one of the toughest years that we've had, but we've been dealing with that for every year is the toughest year, right? Every year is super hard. But my hope for 2022 is that maybe people that took a break from advocacy because it was too stressful or they thought it was a lost cause or just whatever. I hope those people will come back to it and get re-engaged, because our one strength is that there are 15 million people in the United States, not to mention the world, but specifically in the US, that use vape products to some degree. That is our strength. So the more of us that get involved, the more of us that speak out, the more of us that take time to do things, that's where our strength lies. So my real hope is that just more people will jump in the fight and get involved. So thank you guys for all of the things that you're doing to inform people.
Yeah, I hope, like you said there, I think the DIY part of it, or that was that group that was kind of not that much involved with advocacy, but I think the way they've seen things that are coming up, and it's going to affect them just as bad as us, and I think they need to get involved, because I think that's why they're getting a little more involved, because I think they're seeing it's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to get nicotine, get their flavors, and it's time that they jump on board and not say, well, I'm okay, I can make my own e-liquid. And I think those people,
look,
I hope they jump on the back, because that's a big portion. There's a lot. You'll be surprised how many DIYers are really out there.
I know. That's where I started, and that's where LabWorks started originally.
Yeah.
Back in 2014.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, look, they had that excuse for years. They always just said, "Well, I make my own stuff."
Look, the bottom line is that the DIY community, and when I used to be on some of those shows, a few years ago, and I said to them, unless you understand what's coming down the tube, you're going to get thrown under the bus quicker than the big boys. Yeah. Simply because the big boys have got the power behind them to keep moving forward. Yeah. I said, and one of my favorite sayings still to this day is, he who controls the spice controls the universe. And the spice is actually the nicotine. Yeah. And he who controls that, and the FDA is trying to do that now, and they're not doing a very good job of it, but I don't really care. The DIY community now needs to really step up to the plate, because there are huge numbers from around the world. And if they don't understand what's coming or who's coming for them, get your head out of your ass and get into the fight and get into the fucking trenches. I'm sorry, but that's how it works.
Say rubbish for me.
Rubbish.
There you go.
Listen, I've got one little question from Amanda. One little question from Amanda.
All right.
Do you see ABM spreading their wings internationally over the next 12 to 18 months?
Oh, good question.
It's interesting. So we have been a part of a lot of sort of international conversations lately, especially hosting the Twitter spaces that we host every Monday. We talk to a lot of guests that are dealing with things outside of the US, and so we've been building bridges with some of these international advocacy efforts and getting more informed about what's going on internationally. And we're always happy to do whatever we can to help. I don't know how helpful we can truly be, but if it's just a voice to share an experience of how not to regulate something, we can certainly provide that experience that we have with what happens when regulations go wrong, kind of the cautionary tale perspective. But if there are other ways that we can be helpful, we are always dialoguing with many different people. So if you've got ideas, if you need our help with something, we rarely say no to anybody who asks for our help. So just reach out to us and let us know how we can be of assistance.
I have all your links. I'll post them at the end of the show. This way people can find you and ABM website and Twitter account and everything else. So I like to put it at the end, because this way when someone starts our videos, they always see the last so I always put it at the bottom.
No, that's awesome. 2022, we've got our Right to Switch advocacy campaign coming out. It's really based on a very simple premise that every smoker has the right to switch to a safer alternative. And so that's really what you'll be seeing a lot from us in 2022. Everything we're doing really centered around that right to switch message. So that's what we'll be up to.
Awesome possum.
All right. Thank you again, Amanda, for joining us. Thank you, Paul. Tim, I don't know what the hell happened to Tom. Maybe the power went out in Wisconsin. I don't know. Maybe there was a riot for blocks of cheese and bags of milk. I don't know.
Maybe he's single-handedly snow plowing everyone's driveway.
Yeah, right.
We don't know. We'll find out next week.
We'll find out. Come back next week to find out what happened to Tom.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you again, everybody. We'll see everybody next week, and peace out.
See you, everybody.